Hey, YouTube. Uh, so been a while. Sorry about that. Kind of got busy. Summer's my busy time. Um, but I kind of like stumbled on this. There's so many things I want to talk about, but this kind of irked me a little bit. This is Metatron. Metatron is actually a great source of history. He does a lot of research. He does a lot of great stuff with this stuff. But in this particular video, where this concept of the white people don't exist thing. Here's a man who's trying to be I don't know what the proper word is. Uh, he's trying not to be biased, but in a way, I think he accidentally did become biased in his anger. You could feel it in the way he's talking. And to sum up what's really going on, let's see if I can find that picture. This writer um, ended up writing not writing an article. I think he was interviewed by the way the article puts it, or how he's mentioned in the article, um, that this concept of white people don't exist, right? We need to get rid of this whole idea of white race. And I've heard, like, if you muddle around in the internet, you kind of see it. You see this kind of concept and everything. The idea, in a way, this is kind of like the reverse of I don't see color. I believe that's kind of like what's been happening, like what's going on. This new way of looking at it. Um, so again, I kind of was like, oh, hey, what does Metatron think about this? And right off the bat, there was something different about this video. Very different about this video. Throughout the video, Metatron is picking up and emphasizing the concept of the fact that this man is writing, saying, you know. And so, sorry, Metatron, I really got to call you out on this nonsense, right? On a lot of this nonsense that you've been doing this entire video. So come at me if you want to. I'm old enough. I don't give a, you know, you know. But let's be real. This is an interview. Writers aren't known for interviews. They're known for hiding up in their rooms for months at a time, writing, perfecting the art, rewriting it over and over and over again to the point where they have at least 5 copies of the book they're about to put they want to publish before it's gone out. A writer isn't a public speaker. So to basically call out a writer in the middle of an interview for saying you know a lot, especially when that person's American, is kind of naive. It's kind of bullying, actually. You've done this for actually, I have no idea how many years. I'm not that big of a follower. I'm sorry. I love your work. But you've done this for years. You could go back probably into your first year of YouTube or some of the first videos you probably even created and seen a lot of your flaws. So kind of to start this entire, let's say, debate about this subject matter on just attacking the writer for his speech is just wrong. Then we get to the second problem with your argument. Trying to see if I can find it.
Sensical than doing it with white people. And differently from you, I can prove this one through science. You see, African populations.
Again.
The proposed explanation is that white people are a societal construct of flawed arbitrary group classifier based on the fact that within this very group, white, we put together people with different cultural background, with different cultures. White Europeans, an Englishman, a Frenchman, an Italian, a Scandinavian, a German, an American of European descent,
right.
What do they have in common. Nothing. So white people don't exist. That's the thesis. It is a tentative answer which can and will be responded.
No, that is, he said, as he says, that's his thesis. I'm going to try and find all this stuff. I want to keep this short though. So I'm probably not going to play everything. Yes, so the writer's thesis is that white people don't exist. Then Metatron kind of goes into this whole thing about if white people don't exist, what is black people? Right?
And less linkage to equilibrium among the loci.
All right, let me trying to find that number. Because there's a perfect thing that he brings up. Great moment where he brings up numbers. Oh wait, I must be. I just jumped on and started doing this because I'm really a fool for not really. Oh wait, there it is. I know I'm a fool for not really tagging this real quick, but I mean,
moreover, Europe has got
passionate.
44 countries according to the UN, whereas Africa has got 54. And that.
Okay, let's bring up the 44, 54. All right, so next argument. His argument goes, ergo, not ergo. His argument goes like this. If the thesis says, if the theory is the white people don't exist, then what is the problem with why does black people exist? Right? And then he mentions the fact that in Europe, there's 44 different types of 44 different countries. And in Africa, there is 54 different countries. Yes, I'm not going to argue with that. I barely know Europe. I barely know Africa. But I'm going to get my drawing thing for this. We have to understand we are talking about an American Black person. And we have to understand that history, right? And I'm going to back this up with something else. Later in the video, you mentioned, actually, it's better if I bring it up now. Later on in the video, you mentioned that Metatron mentions that when you ask an American what they are, they call themselves white. Let's dive into that a little bit more. Sorry if you don't see me. I'm switching to my drawing pad tablet. There. Okay, so I borrowed this art from the National Park Service, just so you know where we're getting it from. And essentially, this is the map of the trades, the African slave trade. The thing I want you to understand it's a good color. Purple? Sure. Let's ignore the slave part, right? So the idea is we have a bunch of Europeans from all over Europe colonizing America. Fine, right? And after generations, they kind of spread out from here to all the way over here with certain purchases and stealing land and all that other stuff, right? Fine. Multiple generations later, we're still in this situation where when you ask a white person what they are, they actually call back to their actual country, their actual lineage. I don't know. I'm saying I'm horrible at this, but I hope you get the point. There are kids that still that refer to themselves as Italian or Irish or Polish or whatever. They still identify. And the main reason that they all identify is because over the generations, over the generations that they've been here, they've all had small pockets of moments in like pockets of blocks that still identify them as the generational connection, like the generational chain or whatever. I'm horrible at this. I'm sorry, but they still identify with the European country that their ancestors came from. They don't call themselves white. They've never called themselves white. In a general term of like, what is America? Yeah, a bunch of white people sitting there, of course. But when you actually ask them personally what they are, they actually bring up the country that their ancestors came from, right? So no, they don't call themselves white. The only people who call themselves white are the extremists. Yeah, the KKK, the neo-Nazis, all these guys, people who are obsessed and prejudiced and racist are the only ones who bring up the fact that they're white. When you actually talk to a person one-on-one, they go back to talk about their ancestry. There's a section somewhere, there's a place in Texas, somewhere down here, where they still speak German. We know the Quakers probably still talk Dutch. There are people who are still holding on to some inkling of their ancestry, right? Now, when it comes to slaves, on the other hand, Sir Metatron, sorry, shouldn't have said sir, but you get it. When it comes to slaves, there is no link. All these people, and probably even further back here, who got transported to all these islands, were essentially removed. Did I draw on top of it? Yeah, I did. They were removed from their ancestry. Generation upon generation upon generation, especially in America, especially in the South. They were brainwashed and repeatedly, yeah, they were repeatedly brainwashed into not remembering any part of their ancestry. Ask a black person where they come from. They will never know unless they took some ancestry.com thing, unless they actually took a test. And then even then, you kind of have a generalized idea of where they come from. There is no way for black slaves to know where we come from. So in a sense, any black person that was a slave from the South, from in North America, South America, all that, have no ancestry. We are essentially black. We were told what we were when we came to the island, to America, or to the Americas. Sorry, we were told what we are by our enslavers. Inklings of our culture somehow survived through little things, but do we have any connection to it? No, we don't know. Why are we black? Why does black matter? Because we have nothing left. Black in the Americas, black in the Americas mean removed. It means what's left. It is how we survived. When we say we're black, that means that we are removed from what we probably could have been, right? And this is the part that bugs me, because I feel like I believe you should know this now that you live in America, but again, you didn't have the time to research all this stuff. Well, understand what this means. You have a bunch of white, not even quotations. You have a bunch of white people i.e., Americans, who know where their ancestry still comes from, to the point where they actually say it. They live in pocket towns. Like, yeah, they live in pocket towns. You've been to Little Italy. I saw that video about you and the language in America and how we say things wrong. So you understand how far removed we are, but there's still an inkling of wanting to be when it comes to white people or being connected to Italians, to Irish, to Scottish, to Dutch, to German. There's still something that they could look back to. They could look back at their names and find their families far removed. Black people, when they came here, lost their names, lost their connections, lost everything. So when we say black, we mean removed, decoupled, separated. And you see this again, you see this before, but not to this big extent. If you go back into the history of Native Americans, you see the exact same thing where they tried to remove their kids from their lands and erase everything that was Native Americans. So I know they're spitting fire through this entire video. You're angry. I get it. But let's be real. You're talking about two different races in a country, one longing to remember something, one longing to like know who we are, right? And another with some fantasy myth of what they were, right? So lay off, please. And in the future, I'd love to see a video about, I'd love to see you research stuff about American Black people now that you're here. Maybe meet up with someone and actually talk about the slave trade and how in America, Black people were essentially cattle, not men, not gears down in the islands or in South America. They weren't little cogs in a wheel. In America, they were cattle, known as bucks, steers, right? So before you go on the attack, chill.